Episode number 2 of the College Football Preview Podcast as we break down all of the major conferences in Group of 5 as well. You can find us on foxphlgambler.com, where you can go to the podcast tab, check out all the podcasts. Also, on our YouTube channel, see the video of myself and Joe Tansey at Fox Sports The Gambler. Again, that's Joe Tansey at JTansey90. My name is John Jansen at JJansen34. On this episode, it is all about the SEC. We have some quarterback changes at the top. We have at least one veteran quarterback that is on one of the top teams in the SEC. It's a little bit of change. That doesn't necessarily mean there will be change at the top, but there's enough change that it's worth talking about. Joe, where do you want to start here with the SEC? Obviously, we can start Alabama, Georgia, but how much does this also include LSU and Texas A&M when we talk about SEC contenders?
The biggest overarching theme, I think, in the SEC this year is what if.
Oh, a lot of what ifs.
There's a lot of what ifs. It's still the best conference in football, but there's a lot of what ifs. And you can go, from the top down. What if Georgia doesn't have a valuable replacement for Stetson Bennett? What if Alabama doesn't have a quarterback? Now, that comes with the caveat that they've won with, John Parker Wilson and five members of the Booty family.
But there's a reason why they've moved away from those quarterbacks.
Right.
And Nick Saban went hard after getting the top quarterbacks in the country because they needed to adapt. And so I think, to me, that is the biggest what if in the SEC to me. Jalen Milroe came in. He did start a game.
Alabama as a whole is what if. What if Tommy Rees isn't good enough for the SEC?
100%.
There's so many
I think that combination of both. I think because Tommy Rees, I'm not sure of, and also Jalen Milroe, I'm not sure of. Right. That combination to me, wide receivers are good. I don't think it's like the, Devontae Smiths of the world that they've had in the past. But, Alabama's offense is this could be a blast from the past for Alabama's offense. This is going to be one of their worst, and I say worst, they're still going to, be a great offense, but one of the worst they have had in quite a while. And if that's the case, do they slip it all in the SEC? And I think that to me is the biggest what if in the SEC.
Here's the thing, and I've learned this a long time betting on college football.
Alabama's going to be great no matter what.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah, right, mm-hmm. Right.
Very much so. If the second you start doubting Nick Saban,
yep,
is the second he proves you wrong. And the second Alabama is still, oh my God, it's Alabama. Look, we just talked about this in the ACC preview with Clemson. Clemson did this to us last year, where they stunk out loud in the first month, and then you look at the final rankings and you're like, oh, Clemson won, 11 games? Oh, Clemson. Yeah, they always do that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
The world is right again.
It's almost like these things just don't change. And with the elite of the elite where we're at right now, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, and Clemson, it hasn't changed. So until it actually does, now, yes, Bama has looked much more beatable in the past 2 years than they had at any point of the Saban era, but are they going to win 8 games? I don't know.
Oh no, this is still right. I get what you mean.
But
there's always a good base floor of they're probably still going to win double-digit games or more.
But that does go to the next collection of what ifs. What if Brian Kelly takes the next step immediately? What if Texas A&M has an offense?
Which one do you believe in more?
A&M.
Really? A&M?
I actually
Nice.
believe in them equally, but I think A&M, because A&M can't get any worse offensively.
No,
and I fell into that trap.
And this is the biggest change Jimbo Fisher has made offensively since he's been there.
Right. So I think A&M, to me, just because the floor was incredibly low last year, there's no way to go but up. And Petrino, we got blessed with that one, didn't we?
Yes.
I love a good and we'll talk about Hugh Freeze in a second too, because we got another character back in the SEC. Whether it's righteous or not, who cares? It's college football. If you can coach, doesn't matter what you do. And into this next group of teams, what if Tennessee takes a step down after Hendon Hooker? Last year was incredible, but can they can they sustain that? What if Devin Leary finds some second life at Kentucky? He could be better. He could be better than Will Levis.
Which Mark Stoops, yeah, of course. That we could see him doing that.
What if South Carolina finally breaks through under Shane Beamer, and what if that finally works?
Right, and Spencer Rattler continues to get better with his second life in South Carolina.
What if Lane Kiffin continues to be a fantastic football coach? And Ole Miss, we talk so much about Bama and LSU and A&M in the West. What if Ole Miss? What if Ole Miss is that team? I don't know if they'll win the West.
No, but Jackson Dart, look, it's his second year there, and he was already a pretty high recruit coming out of USC. So, yeah, I mean, there's a chance he makes a significant leap this year, Jackson Dart.
Like, there's so many what ifs, and then there's just kind of just Vanderbilt and Missouri just like sitting there in the bottom of the SEC East forever. But like it's more fascinating of an SEC as a whole than it has been in previous years. And there are still going to be people that say this is Georgia and Alabama and the rest, and that's fair. That's been proven. But LSU is not going to be down for too long. A&M can't be worse than they were last year offensively. And then the middle of this pack is, I hate to include Tennessee in the middle, but it almost feels like
it feels like they're going to take a step back. And I love Milton too, by the way.
Right.
And
then the other one
did a good job. So I don't want to say he's even, it was just a fluke last year. Come on, Tennessee's not going to.
And I forgot this fluke in the East. What if Graham Mertz is actually a decent quarterback? And what if Billy Napier, which is the biggest
right? That's what I expect. Napier, obviously a big running coach, and dude, they have a great running back duo in Florida. That's going to be one of the best running teams in the country, Florida. There's
a lot of intriguing possibilities in the SEC. I still think the same teams we're used to seeing are at the top, but that middle, it's just so strong, and there's so many teams you can bank on here where it is going to be fun from a betting perspective, especially in the East. Because the East, I think the East is just a toss-up beneath Georgia. The West, I think you at least have some very clear tiers in there, and then it's kind of just like, well, Arkansas, Auburn, and Mississippi State are in their little grouping at the bottom, but they're still very good. That's the thing. Like if you put these bottom tier teams of the SEC into maybe not the Big Ten, but if you put them in the ACC, put them in the Pac-12, maybe even the Big 12. They're getting very close to bowl eligible, and they might still do that within the SEC because non-conference play is about compiling wins and not who you play for the most part.
Yeah, so I think when I look at the top, I think Georgia much better chance to get back to the SEC title game and be the SEC champion again this season than Alabama. I know Georgia's going through some similar things like quarterback change. I think is the biggest one, but Georgia made Stetson Bennett out to be a very good college quarterback. Right. And I think Beck has a chance to do the same, but it's just that Georgia's defense and the recruiting, everything. I mean, Kirby Smart, Alabama, as you just said, small steps back and look vulnerable for the first time, even though it's small steps back and they're still going to be great. Georgia is at their peak right now.
Kirby is doing exactly what Saban did.
Right, exactly. And doing it at the moment, and it can change, but at the moment, it feels like doing it slightly better at this time. So
but
I think
it's got to be about sustainability.
Yeah, for sure. But I from what we've seen in the recruiting classes and the talent that they have defensively, they likely will sustain that. Now, the quarterback play could be a complete disaster, and they're back to the JT Daniels days, and they're back to like the Jake Fromm days. But I don't know.
I think that's a little bit of a slight on Jake Fromm.
Jake Fromm wasn't good.
He was better than JT
Jake
Daniels.
But Jake Fromm wasn't taking them to Jake Fromm wasn't winning them championships, right?
Right, but I think you can.
Like that's what we're talking about here with Georgia. Yeah. I mean, that's a championship. Probably they are on the odds.
But Stetson Bennett just took them to the Natty.
Right.
Like how incrementally better were they? Jake Fromm to Stetson Bennett. It really isn't much. It's just experience, and a better supporting cast around him. Like that. That's really what it is. Now, Georgia's going to win the East.
Yeah. They're definitely going to win the East.
I mean,
definitely.
And I think they get to ease into this a little bit too. I mean, UT Martin, Ball State, UAB in 3 of the first 4 weeks, and then they get South Carolina at home in between, which is a game that is sometimes tricky for Georgia, but I don't think that game being in Athens is very tricky for them.
No.
So,
And
I mean,
look,
look,
that win against South Carolina pretty much. I mean, because it's South Carolina, Tennessee in the East that could maybe contend a bit, but I just don't see that happening.
like if you're looking at somebody else's path to the East, Kentucky has to visit Georgia in October. Very, very unlikely that a win happens there. Georgia has to go to Tennessee, but that's not until the second to last week of the regular season when Georgia is going to be at its peak. Tennessee could also be at its peak, but if you're Tennessee, you'd much rather see Georgia in the spot where South Carolina is in mid-September. You would much rather have that because there are some uncertainties. It would be the first big SEC game for the new quarterback. But that late in the season, I don't know. And then Florida, I mean, it's a rivalry game, but it hasn't been close in a while. So, I mean, the schedule is very easy. Georgia should win the East.
Yeah.
And we're here talking about a very intriguing race for second, potentially, depending on if Tennessee keeps and sustains.
That'll be fascinating because, I think everybody clowned Jordan Rodgers for saying like Joe Milton's the most, I think, what did he say? The most talented quarterback in college football or whatever. And like, it's easily like laughable because he's projecting a lot, but also if we know, you've seen it, the dude's talented as hell. Like there is a possibility here. Milton takes the college football world by storm and Jordan Rodgers, laughing at him now. And all of a sudden he looks like a genius. Even though he's not really, because we've seen it. Like, we know Milton has the best arm in college football. We know Milton's extremely raw as a talent. It's just that can Hubel get it together in, his first year starting for Milton? This could go, he could end up having a great year, or he could end up like Anthony Richardson, where the talent, that he's getting better, but, Tennessee just overall around him takes a step back, and Milton just, they're an 8-win team, and Milton has a really good year, and Milton's talked about, it's a top NFL talent, but not in the way of, a Hendon Hooker where the veteran experience takes over.
Here's what's going to happen with Tennessee. And you can see it right by their schedule. It's telegraphed right in front of you. They're going to beat the living snot out of Virginia in the opening week. That's 20 or 28-point favorite. They're going to win that game handily. They're going to blow out Austin Peay. They're probably going to go into the swamp and beat Florida.
UTSA is a tough game.
That's a fun little game.
Yes, it is.
I can't wait to see what the total ends up being in that game. That might be the highest total in the first month of the season.
Does that get that gets over 70?
That has to get to 70.
Yeah.
It has to. So like, you win those 4 games, and everybody's gonna be buying the Joe Milton hype. It's going to be there. It's going to build up, and rightfully.
Do you agree? It's deserved, right? I feel like it's deserved for Milton because of how talented he is. It's just tough because he's.
I got to see it on the field. I got to see it on the field, but here's when you're really going to find out who Tennessee is. When they get really into the deep depths of SEC play. Home against South Carolina, home against A&M. Then they have to go to Tuscaloosa, go to Lexington, and then the schedule drops off. The only
Georgia in there, but
Georgia's the
Connecticut,
only
Missouri, Vanderbilt, all sandwiched in between Georgia.
But that's a really tough 5-week stretch, and I'm kind of assuming they beat Florida, even though that is a rivalry game. It's the third Saturday in September, still a very fun tradition.
Who knows if the offense is going to be what it was last year, and maybe they stumble out of the gate. I mean, their offense jumped to 46 points per game last year.
They're not going to sustain that.
I don't know about you. There's no way they sustain that.
No, but that's a gauntlet. Even for the SEC, that's a gauntlet. And even if you condense it down to A&M, Bama, and Kentucky, and 2 of those being road games, because they do have a bye week in between the South Carolina and the A&M games, that's still tough. That's really tough. And that is when we're going to see the true kind of character about this Tennessee team. Can it be sustained? And if it can, that's when we'll see it. I'm not saying they need to go 3-0, but if you win one of those road games, it's a huge deal. And even if you beat A&M at home, and I think they kind of have to beat Kentucky, given the kind of the state of the SEC East. But if you go 2-1 in those 3 games, you come out pretty fine on the other side, and we're talking about you a little bit because I don't think they're gonna slip up in September. So
I mean, we'll get into our bets, and
mhm.
we'll get into some of the teams that we really like. But I think one of the more notable teams in the SEC recently, because Sam Pittman's done a really good job there, is Arkansas. They lose a lot of talent offensively, only have 4 starters back. They still have KJ Jefferson, so that's obviously a help. They still have Raheem Sanders, who's going to be one of the best running backs in the country. But they lose a lot defensively, lose pretty much their entire wide receiving core. It's still veteran quarterback, veteran coach. What they start off with Western Carolina, Kent State, and BYU. The win total's at 7. That's going to be close, but what do you make of Arkansas?
I would have transferred if I was KJ Jefferson.
I would have done the same thing.
You have to know when a stock.
That was as good as it's going to get with Arkansas to me.
Absolutely.
Once you won that 9 wins, try and bring it back again with the 7 last year. But, I think the writing's on the wall there a little bit.
You have to know when a stock gets too high and when to sell it. And you probably could have done that middle of last year with Arkansas. Sam Pittman came along at a perfect time in the SEC West, where Ole Miss is going through a coaching change, Mississippi State, LSU doing the same thing. Auburn's always a mess, so it's just a matter of if it's a contained mess in that season.
Look, I know Hugh Freeze has some pedigree, but Hugh Freeze also has a lot of baggage with him.
He's so perfect for Auburn.
I know, but perfect for Auburn in it could be great or the biggest disaster, and that sounds like Auburn.
Absolutely, and that's just Auburn in general.
It's a perfect place for Auburn to be.
Auburn, even though they're in a crowded SEC, Auburn has carved out such a beautiful niche for themselves in college football.
They're so weird.
They are chaotically beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what Auburn is, because they can be really good, but they can also be really bad. And when they're bad, it becomes
it's bad.
They're never like in the middle.
And it's not been good the last few years. It's not been good.
But like Auburn produces the best fan content when they're bad. That's why I say it's like chaotically beautiful, because looking from the outside, like it really is phenomenal to see like the fan reactions and who's going to be.
What's great too is they're probably going to have a quarterback battle every single week where you're talking about. I've been through a part of those, by the way, where I'm covering a college football team, and is it this guy or this guy every single week? Auburn radio, I hope you guys are ready, because it's going to be every week. Is it Robbie Ashford or Peyton Thorne starting?
Which still isn't like a great, like, does no one want to play for Hugh Freeze?
I have no idea.
Like you're telling me, like, out of all the options here, Hugh Freeze got Michigan State's quarterback?
Yep.
In the portal?
Yep.
Of all the options that were out there.
Yep.
I'm underwhelmed. I am very underwhelmed by like the quarterback. Now,
but it's not I was overwhelmed or in love with what Robbie Ashford did last year for Auburn either.
But like,
so I have no idea what to make out of that. I have no idea.
Was a really good college quarterback, and Hugh Freeze turned him into something.
Yep. Like, that's true. Ashford could fit, the stuff that
it's very from like a name perspective. Getting a Michigan State quarterback doesn't exactly.
No.
I mean, look at who's the most notable Michigan State quarterback? Kirk Cousins, Nick Foles. Like, those guys don't.
Nick Foles.
Could you imagine Nick?
Whoa,
could you
imagine
Nick Foles?
Nick Foles was Arizona, big guy.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
What are you doing? Kirk Cousins, you were 100%.
Kirk Cousins,
right on, that is very Michigan.
Brian Hoyer.
Yes, that's a great one. There you
go. Could you imagine some like average white guy with some like mediocre athleticism playing in a Hugh Freeze offense?
Right.
No, trust me, I watched enough of Michigan State last year.
Thorne's got no athlete. Thorne is a very underwhelming athlete overall. Yeah. He's functional. I think that's the best way to put Peyton Thorne.
And this may be me still holding a grudge for Michigan State not covering against Rutgers, but that's neither here nor there. We don't hold grudges here.
No, we do.
We just have memories.
What do you mean? College football is all about grudges. Come on.
which is why it's perfect. We're talking about
it's great. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, Auburn could be decent. Like, I could very well, like, if we're gonna say Arkansas is gonna be bad, and I don't wish the Mississippi State situation on anybody. Like, that's
No.
just going to be. I don't know how they're going to respond. I really don't.
It's going to be tough.
They're going to
Hey,
play
look,
the season.
it's good. They have
returning.
returning. A lot of guys from last year. It's just
Right.
that, especially offensively, but still, they're going through big changes there.
Yeah, and so I don't know what's going to go on there. I hope for the best. I hope they do make a bowl, and Will Rogers is as good as he was last year. But I just don't know how they're going to like emotionally respond in the first few weeks, because that is a lot for a program to go through. So we're assuming that Arkansas, Mississippi State, and maybe I think that's it in that bottom tier of the West.
Yeah.
So you have. If you're Auburn,
look, the teams
where are you going to find the wins if you're Auburn?
The teams that I'm not intrigued by at all, I can just cross them off. Not intrigued by Arkansas, Auburn, Mississippi State. Cross them all off. I don't like, and Missouri and Vanderbilt. And can I say Kentucky or no? Because does Devin Leary intrigue you there at Kentucky, and Mark Stoops with, he always seems to get the best out of Kentucky.
I'll get to Kentucky in a second. I agree with you. Mizzou, Vanderbilt. Look. Whatever.
Yeah.
Go. Mississippi State, I'll wait and see. And then Arkansas, I have no interest. Auburn's going to be fascinating just because of the circus that is Hugh Freeze.
That, yes. But as a team that I'm going to be thinking can win some games in the SEC and in college football, no, I'm not intrigued by them in that way.
But they can get to 6.5 because they play Mississippi State and Arkansas, and they have a weak non-con. Like, they could get there. Is it going to be easy? No, but they can get there. They can get to a bowl. That's
fair. Yeah. Okay.
Kentucky. Devin Leary is going to be better than Will Levis?
I think so. I 100% think so.
But
Will Levis was not the best college quarterback.
He was not.
Look, the raw NFL talent, I completely get. But in terms of good, productive college quarterbacks, Will Levis was not that. He was not.
So there, you have an upgraded quarterback as long as Devin Leary stays healthy, because that's been the big thing with him at NC State.
Yes, it has.
He needs to play a complete season if he's able to.
I like the fit. Can I at least say that? At least Devin Leary. I do like the fit at Kentucky.
I think it's a very good fit. Mm-hmm. Look, Kentucky's going to do what they always do. They're going to win. They're going to win all the non-con games, and they're going to beat Ball State. They're going to beat Eastern Kentucky. They're going to beat Akron. They're probably going to win one of those games by 7, and we're going to turn an eyeball at it for a second, and then be like, okay, cool, it's Kentucky. We don't care about them. They're going to beat Vanderbilt. So they're definitely going to be 4-0. It could beat Florida, but is that really a headline-grabbing win? No, not really. They're going to lose to Georgia. They're going to beat Missouri. So here we are. It's going to be late October. We're going to do the same exact thing we do with Kentucky football every year. Kentucky is a above average version of NC State, which is funny because they have Devin Leary now. But they are. They're consistent.
It's a very NC State-like program, yeah.
You know exactly what they're going to do. Their coach is going to be there forever. And come late October, they're going to be ranked like 20th in the country, have one loss to Georgia that we all expect is going to happen. Hell, they might even challenge Tennessee. They're not going to beat Bama, and they're going to finish at 9 or 10 wins. Maybe 8, depending on if they have a disappointing performance or something. But Kentucky has become remarkably consistent, which is saying a lot about Kentucky football.
Yeah.
Mark Stoops,
and the consistency comes from defense. Their defense has been, and they lose a lot of starters. They only have 5 returning. But, I think the hope here, if you do like Kentucky, is Mark Stoops develops talent really well. His defense has always overperformed. And that this, again, is probably going to be a defense that overperforms.
What's the one criticism we've always had of Kentucky football? Quarterback.
Offense. Yeah, quarterback.
Yeah, they don't usually have a quarterback. They have a phenomenal run game, and these guys can.
They do. They lose Rodriguez, but they get an NC State transfer who I really liked, Sumo Karngbaye. It's a name that I never got, but I remember watching him at NC State.
All the Jersey guys at Kentucky.
Yeah, it's really good. They get another transfer in Ray Davis. They bring back McLean. So they lose Rodriguez, but losing Rodriguez doesn't mean that it's gotten that much worse. They have a lot of depth. They have a ton of depth.
Kentucky has a system, and
They
that's
do.
a good thing. Usually that's a bad connotation in sports. Kentucky has a system and it works really well. I'll take them over 7 wins, easy.
Ooh, I like that. Doesn't it seem like, doesn't it seem like a recipe for that? They get the transfer quarterback that we really like and think that fits there with Devin Leary with the kind of pro style that they have. So I love that move. Their offensive line is 4 starters returning, so it's going to be better than last year. They're going to improve at least. They lose Rodriguez, but they still have depth, and probably one of these running backs is going to end up having a very good year. And they return 5 of their top wide receivers. So like this is a Kentucky team that maybe goes under the radar a little bit, but this is a perfect Mark Stoops year where they probably end up winning, 8 games and having a solid season.
Kentucky with their offensive scheme is a very light version of the Mike Shanahan Denver Broncos.
Man, they would start off 4-0, right?
Running back. Yeah, they'll start off
All-State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and Vanderbilt. And then you have Florida at home. And they've given Florida some problems.
They play Missouri. That's 5. Like Mississippi State, there's like they will beat a combination of Florida, Missouri, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Louisville. There are 3 wins there easily, probably 4. But like I said, they remind me a lot in terms of like running back, a very light version of the Broncos, when they would just plug in these running backs and they would just keep running behind this incredible offensive line. Now, I'm not saying, obviously those Broncos team won Super Bowls, so like it's a very light version, but it kind of reminds me of that in terms of like personnel, where they can just plug in a running back and go behind 5 hosses and gain 100 yards. And
it does.
And now they have an actual quarterback. Yeah.
Let's get into some of the bets. So you said Kentucky's one of yours?
Yeah. Over 7. I mean, Kentucky can win 8 games pretty easily.
Yeah. I'm going to go Florida. Florida is at 5.5, and it's minus 120 for the over. Florida, I don't know if they're going to beat Utah like they did to start the season last year, and it's a little bit tougher. Like they get a couple easy wins, McNeese, they get Charlotte, American Athletic Conference, Charlotte, Vanderbilt. They should beat, but it is a somewhat tough schedule. I will say that.
Hot seat.
And Napier, look, second year, if it doesn't go well, absolutely on the hot seat.
He enters the season on the biggest hot seat in the SEC.
But they still have a ton of talent. They have the best running back duo in the country with Montreal Johnson and Trevor Etienne, not Travis, Trevor Etienne, who is extremely good and might be just as good, if not better, than his brother. I mean, the only questions I have, they lose a lot of starters on defense. And Graham Mertz, obviously, he's not Anthony Richardson. And, while he does have, I would say, veteran experience, he's been and seen a lot of college football. Napier loves to run. And this team is loaded at the skill position spots. They're loaded at running back, which is going to help out even more. And their defense, while they're losing a bunch of starters, they're going to improve because it's Florida and they're always going to be good defensively, at least to me. I mean, last year they gave up 28 points per game. They haven't given up less than 25 since 2019. So it's been a few years, but this team has that strength. Their front seven's very good. I think Napier's Florida team play good defense, run the ball a lot, and they're going to end up going over 5 games. So
if Florida doesn't make a bowl game, just fold the program. Like, I would be stunned if they didn't make a bowl game. I'd be a little stunned. It's very stunning to see them at over 5.5 with their win total, but I get it. I get where it is. If Graham Mertz can be somewhat of a quarterback, kind of like what he had to be at Wisconsin, but he has better running backs in Florida. I mean, the bare minimum expectation for Florida is to win 6 games and get. I
think they can. That's all I'm betting over. I bet that
it may not keep Napier, but that's bare minimum there. That, I mean, you can beat South Carolina, Missouri, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and look, Florida's talented enough. Again, they beat Utah last year. Now, again, they collapsed at the end of it. I get that, but Florida is always talented enough. It's that can the coaching put it together for them and, make them reach whatever potential that they have. I'm not saying this is like a Florida team that has all the talent in the world, but they are always going to be just as talented, if not more talented than you.
They have 6 wins on their schedule very easily.
I think so. I think so.
Look, they're going to beat McNeese. They're going to beat Charlotte. They're going to beat Vanderbilt at home. They host Arkansas in a crossover game. So we're at 5 right there. You're beating Missouri.
Yes.
And then you might beat South Carolina.
Yeah, I think you could beat South Carolina.
That's a mid-October game. Like, it's very clear. Like, and if you get an upset, you're even close. Like, you're even closer to cashing right away.
Exactly.
Like, I think Kentucky.
What's going to happen is Florida's going to be in so many close games with some of those teams that this is either going to be a 6-win team, right? Competitive. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a 6-win team, or a few plays bounce their way and they end up winning 8 games, and Florida ends up being like a surprise team. Like that's the kind of season I expect from Florida.
That's about where I expect them to be.
Yep. Anything else in the SEC? When it comes to Heisman Trophy candidates, you really have Jaden Daniels and then Carson Beck. That's it for the SEC when it comes to Heisman Trophy winners. It's a little surprising because we're used to the SEC having all of this top talent. Obviously, Jaden Daniels, I think there might be some questions about LSU, even though I think Brian Kelly has hit the transfer portal the best out of any head coach in college football over the last 2 years. They have a great running game. They got Noah Cain from Penn State. They get Logan Diggs from Notre Dame, where Brian Kelly was previously. And Jaden Daniels is a top talent who is now, I think it is junior year. So he's been around for a while, been around the block. So Jaden Daniels is intriguing to me at 12-1. I don't know if I would absolutely love that play.
I'm going to buy a stock here that I think will rise throughout the year. I will take Texas A&M to win the West at plus 550.
They have the talent to do it. It's the same question every single dang year with Texas A&M. Quarterback. Mm-hmm. And look, this is the biggest change. This is exactly what we needed to see. This is the biggest change offensively they have had since Jimbo Fisher's been there. Jimbo Fisher's not calling plays. They bring in a veteran coach who has plenty of success calling plays in college football in Petrino. And they have a guy now. They've had other top recruiting quarterbacks or recruited quarterbacks like Haynes King that has been there. But Wegman at least showed some promise last year, and now he gets a different play caller. So this seems like the best season for it to happen, or at least a season that, you can make the projection that it will happen because of the change.
It's a team that it can't get worse.
Definitely can't get worse.
It's basically what I'm trying to say here. Like
that was bad. It was 22 points per game last year. They were very, very bad. And
it does not seem like it was that much.
I know. 22 seems high.
They were that bad. Do you have a number on their win total? I can't find it.
Win total is 8.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's at even money too. Over 8 is at even money.
I'll take 8. I'll take A&M. I'll take Kentucky. I'll join you on your Florida trail. We're not going to do the Gator Chomp because you don't like fun.
No.
If Sean Brace was here, if we had a phone a friend option. Actually, you know what, John? If Sean was here, he would join me in this.
He would, but I can't. I gotta hold my mic.
Not have fun. There we go. Florida over 5.5. There we go. We're doing the Gator Chomp.
Go Gators.
See, it's not that difficult,
Even though I hate the swamp. I covered a game there. I didn't like it. I thought it was pretty terrible. Is that a hot take? Is that a hot take?
I don't know.
Because I know it's got history. It's pretty disgusting, though. Not going to lie. But I like Florida. Anything else as we wrap up the SEC preview here of the college football preview?
No, I want some teams to be good, but I think you're going to see Georgia, Bama, LSU, A&M.
You know what? Because we did the ACC preview first, which you can check out Fox Sports The Gambler on YouTube. But I think the ACC was more interesting than really good. The ACC is more great, less interesting. I don't find a lot of interesting things about the SEC this year. In my eyes, it could be a very boring. Alabama's offense isn't the best, but they're still Alabama, so they get to the SEC title game. In Georgia, who knows what Carson Beck's going to be and how good this offense is, but Georgia's defense is going to decimate everyone, and they make it to the SEC title game. This is back to the boring LSU, Alabama, no quarterbacks, but great defenses, SECs we have seen in the past.
I still think the SEC is incredibly fun. I do.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because there's enough meat in the middle where there's going to be compelling storylines every single week. compelling games every week. Now, there are going to be blowouts, absolutely, but
I feel like the games are going to be so boring.
But like the middle of the SEC, it actually gives you something to watch.
Yeah.
Like whereas the middle of the ACC,
at least in the West is very intriguing.
And look, I know we poo-pooed Missouri and Vanderbilt, but if there's a little bit of improvement there, they can.
I feel like honestly the one we really poo-pooed before we get out of here. I feel like the one that we really, because South Carolina is getting a lot of hype, and I feel like you and I just both went, they're all right.
Well, because I've heard the Shane Beamer accelerating the program hype for 2 years now. Like there's got to be result. Like what's the ceiling here with South Carolina? Are we talking? We're not talking win in the East, but we're talking like 9-10 wins. That's the way we're hyping this up, and we're not there yet. The most memorable moment.
I mean, they have a tough schedule. They have a lot of turnover. They bring back Rattler, which I think is really the big thing. Is you bring back a quarterback that we've now he's in his third, fourth year.
He's in his 11 millionth year of college football.
Right. And Rattler finally showed the promise that I think we all wanted to see out in Oklahoma when he was there. Right. It's just they have a lot of notable things that you would kind of check off when you're looking at a team like this, but I just don't think their defense is going to be that good. They gave up 28 points per game last year, and they only bring back 4 starters. And I don't know, what is the ceiling for Rattler? Is he now this, the NFL projected quarterback that we all thought, or, is he just going to be an average college quarterback? Which I lean more. I think he's just going to be average. I think he'll be fine. But
the most memorable accomplishment that Shane Beamer has. Did they beat Georgia?
They did beat Georgia.
Okay, so they beat Georgia.
No, they lost to Georgia.
They almost beat Georgia.
No, they beat Texas A&M last year. They beat Tennessee. Tennessee was the big one because remember Hendon. That's right. I'm thinking of that game. Hendon Hooker got hurt that game, and South Carolina went on to score 63 points.
South Carolina's most memorable moment under Shane,
and they beat Clemson.
Yeah. So the most memorable moment under Shane Beamer right now is him being dumped in Mayo, or Mayo being dumped on him after Mayo. That's not good.
I mean, it is. I mean, they beat South Carolina, which is big. Or not South. They beat Clemson. Rival game. Clemson, good program, and they beat them. So I mean, there was a couple notable wins last year, but those are wins that I think turn around this year.
I don't think they're capable of taking a Tennessee vault up the standings. That's what.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like they get a couple of those wins last year, but that's not going to happen again this. Like it's just each year is different, and I think they kind of got away with a couple wins, and I think in this year. They don't come away with that win against Clemson like they need to because it's going to be at Clemson this time. I don't even know if they beat North Carolina to start the season, which is a really great game.
North Carolina, South Carolina actually is the biggest prove-it game of September.
Yeah, for both teams.
Yeah.
Is South Carolina's offense, can they keep up with Drake May's, great talent? Or even is this South Carolina defense good enough to stop Drake May's talent?
Is either team good? I mean,
is either team good? I'm fair.
Forget the layers of the onion there.
Completely fair.
Is either team good? We don't know.
I don't know. There seems to be so much hype with South Carolina. I can't get there. Like I think South Carolina could easily be a 6-6 win team this year.
I did the South Carolina hype last year. I don't need to do it again.
Like I think Florida could potentially be better than South Carolina.
They might be on level pegging.
Fair enough. I'll take that though. I'll take that for a team that only has a win total of 5.5, while South Carolina's it's 6, 6.5. So I'll take that. Joe Tansey, that is it for the SEC portion of the college football preview, getting you ready for the season as we go over all the major conferences. Joe Tansey, you can follow at JTansey90. You can follow me, John Jansen, at JJansen34. All of these previews can be found in a couple of places, foxphlgambler.com on the podcast tab for the college football preview. But make sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. Subscribe, Fox Sports The Gambler, all spelled out, all one word. And you can check out the college football previews there as well. That is it for us. We'll be back with more of the college football preview right here on The Gambler.